Hello there. I hope you are all fine and healthy. Welcome to my grammar and usage class, so COVID-19 edition. So today we will talk about, we will look at subordinate clause, which is part of a complex clause. So if you are from my previous writing class, you potentially still remember what is complex clause and subordinate clause. Okay. And for this topic, I take it from the Huddleston and Pelham books, chapter 10, and I have uploaded the PDF of the relevant chapter on OASA. So I encourage you to take a look and read that for further details. Okay, so subordinate clause, as I've said, is part of complex clause. It makes up the complex clause, yeah, and it can function as a complement, yeah, a dependent of a larger clause, the so-called matrix clause, and subordinate clause can also function as adjunct adverb. And we will see that in the later video that complement clause can also function as modifier of a noun. Yeah, and well, a complex clause consists of subordinate clause and a matrix clause, a main clause. Yeah, and we will see the different types of subordinate clause now. Okay, well, simple main clause consists of just complete sentence of subject and predicate and object, such as number one, Sue is the best candidate. Yeah, that's a main clause. But Sue is the best candidate is embedded or occurs as subordinate clause in 1b. Yeah, in I agree that Susie is the best candidate. That's a complex clause with Sue is the best candidate as subordinate clause. Okay. Um, Second example, he was looking at a book. That's a main clause, and because it can stand alone, yeah, it can means it can express a complete meaning in itself, but subordinate clause cannot do it. Yeah. So well, if we go into that definition, that subordinate clause cannot express complete thought, which if you just say something like that Sue is the best candidate, what's up with that? So it's not complete. Yeah. But I agree that Sue is the best candidate. That's a complete sentence where the Sue is the best candidate is used as subordinate clause. And in 2b, this is the book he was looking at. Yeah, if you just say he was looking at what, yeah, you expect something. And in this b example number 2, he was looking at function as modifier, yeah, of the noun book. So this is the type of relative clause. And in the third example, I gave him my address. That's a simple main clause. Yeah, subject I, predicate give, and two objects pattern. Okay, but in 3b, I made a mistake in giving him my address. Okay, in giving him my address, it is not a main clause, it is subordinate clause, and it is embedded as a complement of preposition in. Yeah, and usually if you have a preposition and then followed by a verb, you need to put that verb as ing form. Okay, so here is a gerund form of a verb, so it does not indicate present continuous tense, no, because it is just the correct form of a verb when you attach it after a preposition. Yeah. Okay. And in this example, let me go further. Right. In this example, so the whole clause here in the complex clause, they are all the complex clause. Okay. And within these complex clauses, there is another clause that is embedded. Yeah. So-called subordinate clause. This is subordinate clause. This is subordinate clause. Okay. subordinate clause that is embedded inside a complex clause. Okay. As I've said, there are several types of subordinate clause. And in this book, according to Huddleston and Pelham, there are three major types. Relative clause, okay, clause that is used to modify a head noun, such as number one, they were among people who had been invited. So had been invited is a clause whose subject is the relative pronoun who, okay. This is the subject, and the reference of who is people. And the people is the noun that is modified by this relative clause. Okay, we will look at relative clause in later on in later video. And comparative clause is another type of subordinate clause. Yeah, more people came than had been invited. You see here, had been invited is embedded as a comparative subordinate clause, and you see there is no explicit subject. Who is the subject of had been invited? No, there is no explicit mention, but you may infer, you may guess that this should be the entity that is invited. And we will, for this session, we will mostly focus on the content subordinate clause, such as this one. I don't think that these people had been invited, okay? Or similar, like I agree that Sue is the best candidate. So we will look at example from this type, okay? Right. Okay, since we focus on this type, let's see how it is in more detail. And well, the content subordinate clause is like a default, and default is like the basic or the prototypes of subordinate clause, and it is introduced or marked by subordinator that. Yeah. Well, this is misleading. Well, that can be optional or obligatory. We will see later on. And if you see, okay, this is a marker of subordinate clause, one of the marker of subordinate clause. But then when you see the rest of the subordinate clause, namely these people had been invited, this clause appears to be similar, like main clause. Yeah, you can use these people had been invited as a main clause. But in this, because it is introduced by that, it occurs as subordinate clause. And in this example, the subordinate clause function as a complement, yeah, as a complement of the verb thing. Okay, and we will see that predominantly subordinate clause can function as complement in addition to as adjunct or adverb. So if you forgot about what is complement, what is adjunct, you need to go back and review the previous lectures. Okay, right. Yeah, relative clause in chapter 11, comparative clause in chapter 12 of the reference book. Okay, and note that there are in the book there are several types of content subordinate clause that are proposed. Okay, there are actually 4 types of content subordinate clause: declarative, interrogatives. Interrogative can be closed or open. So closed is yes, yes no question type, and open is like WH question. And we have exclamative content subordinate clause. And these are examples of these 4 major types of content subordinate clause. Yeah. You see in the first example is the declarative type of subordinate clause. In the simple main clause, you can say Liz is in Paris. Yeah, that's a simple main clause. And it can occur as a subordinate clause in here. He says that Liz is in Paris. Okay, similar like before with the that. I don't think that people had been invited. Okay. All right. So that's the declarative, yeah, indicating a statement, and we have an open, a closed interrogative subordinate clause. Yeah. Like, is she ill? That's a closed question, yes or no. And you can embed that into a complex clause as subordinate clause, such as this one. And you need the marker of whether or if. We will see that uh, shortly. So I wonder whether she is ill. Yeah. Um, and the third type is the open interrogative subordinate clause. What do you want? Okay, what do students want? So you can embed that kind of interrogative to complex clause as subordinate clause. Tell me what you want. Tell me where on earth you are at the moment. Yeah. Okay. And the last one is exclamative. In exclamative is like expressing surprise or mostly surprise. Yeah. Or arousal of emotion, like what a bargain it is. Yeah. And usually there is an exclamation mark, and that's a main clause. Yeah, what a bargain it is. And you can use that as a subordinate clause, such as she told me what a bargain it is. Okay, so exclamative clause can be marked by exclamative phrase with what or how. Yeah. People told me how beautiful she was at the party. Okay, they told me how fast he ate the whole pizza. Okay, so that's another example of exclamative used as subordinate clause. Okay, so and in this session we will look further the details of each of these four types. Right. Okay. We start with declarative subordinate clause. The difference, maybe you can get it from previous explanation. The difference between main clause and declarative subordinate clause is that there is subordinator that in the subordinate clause. Yeah, and that subordinator can be obligatory, it can be a must, it can be optional or impossible, or it can create non-grammatical sentence. Okay, in this example, with subordinator that I need help is clear. In this kind of sentence, that is obligatory. So you need to have that there. If you omit that, like I need help is clear, that's totally strange in English. Okay, no one will ever say that unless in this example. And then, okay, so in this context, that I need help is clear, you need that one. And in the second example, if you add subordinator that, this example, you add that, this example become odd. It becomes awkward and not grammatical. Yeah? No one will ever say I left before that he arrived. Yeah, you will most likely not see or encounter people saying that. Okay, that's strange. But when you omit that, such as this one, when you don't have that, it is a perfect English. Yeah, I left before he arrived. I left after he arrived. Okay. Yeah, so you don't have that in this kind of example. In the last example, that is optional. So this is a condition where that can be occurring or not. Okay, so now you ask, how do we know what kind of features that help us to determine whether we need that or not. Okay, in the first example, that is obligatory. Okay, and you do that whenever the subordinate clause function as subject of the matrix clause. Okay, and in example 1, that I need help is the subject of the predicate is. Okay, so that I need help, this is the whole clause, but function as the subject of is, and in that case the subordinate that has to be present. Okay, otherwise you find this strange example. Okay, and you can also have that in a subordinate clause that is preposed. Yeah, preposed means it occurs before the subject, so that I need help, I can't deny. So here the subordinate clause that I need help occurs before the subject I. In that case, you need that subordinate clause. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's the condition when you need the that subordinate. Okay. When the that subordinate is obligatory. Right. The situation where you don't need that subordinate. Yeah. The condition where that subordinate becomes ungrammatical is when the subordinate clause is a complement of a preposition. Okay, most preposition will not like that subordinate. Okay, except these three prepositions. Okay, they require that subordinate, but most other prepositions will exclude. Yeah, otherwise it is totally not grammatical. So I left before that he arrived is not good. I left before he arrived, that's fine. I left when he arrived, totally fine. Okay, so when there is a prepositions, you don't have the that subordinate. And in other positions, such as in example 3, the that subordinate is optional. Yeah, you can have it or not. And in informal speech, in spoken language, that subordinate will be less likely to occur. Yeah, most often it will be omitted. Okay, like I don't know what you like, I don't know that, or I don't know, sorry, that's not a good example. I know it is original, I know that is original, I know you like that food, for instance. So mostly in spoken language that is omitted. Okay, now we have looked at the difference between main clause, declarative main clause, and declarative subordinate clause due to the presence of subordinate that, and we also have looked at when and where that subordinate is obligatory, optional, or non-grammatical. Okay, and now we look at what are the functions, okay, of declarative subordinate clause. And most of the function of declarative subordinate clause is complement of verb, noun, adjective, or preposition. Yeah. But there are other functions too. So the first function, as we have seen before, where that is obligatory, is declarative subordinate clause function as subject of a clause. That they refuse, this is the example, that they refuse didn't surprise us. That I need help is clear. That we all need to stay home is pretty boring. Yeah, that's another example of the declarative subordinate clause function as subject. And it can also function as extra post subject, a subject where it is moved to the end of a main clause and it is replaced by it. It didn't surprise us that they refused. Okay, and most of the time, in addition to subject complement, the position of subject, declarative content subordinate clause can also function as complement of verbs. Okay, it is a complement of verbs, such as here, she informed me that she had been insulted. Okay, this is the verb that is complemented by this subordinate clause. It can also a complement of is predicate. Like the problem is that we just can't do it. The problem is that we all now need to stay home. Okay. Or the good news is we all need to stay home, for instance. Yeah. And another example is I realize that you feel insulted. I realize that you need more good network to do WebEx class. Okay, right. It can also function as complement of a noun, such as fact. You can't ignore the fact that he was drunk. Okay, you can't ignore the idea that we all need to stay vigilant. Okay, you can't ignore the idea that people should maintain blah blah blah. Okay, so fact like an idea requires that complement, and adjectives such as glad requires complement clause, and also preposition provided. Okay, so those are functions of declarative subordinate clause. Now we look at the interrogative types of content subordinate clause. We have open and close types. Now you may ask, what is the difference when you use interrogative in main clause and in subordinate clause? So in main clause, the function of interrogative is only to ask question. Yeah, you don't know the answer is, so you ask, right? But in interrogative subordinate clause, in the subordinate clause, the interrogative sentence is used to state or express what the question is. So I just mentioned an example of interrogative subordinate clause. Okay, so in subordinate clause, the interrogative sentence is used to state or express what the question is. It does not ask question. Okay, let's say some example. In interrogative main clause, such as where is he, you don't know where he is. You ask his whereabouts. Yeah. But in interrogative subordinate clause, like I know where he is, it means that I know the answer to the question where is he, or I told her what it was. It means that I told her the answer to the question what was it. Okay, so that is the difference, the different implication of how you use interrogative in subordinate clause and interrogative in the main clause. Okay, before we look at what is the difference between interrogative in main and subordinate clause, now we look at the feature of interrogative subordinate clause as from the open and closed interrogative. Okay, in the closed interrogative subordinate clause, you will have special markers, okay, indicators of closed interrogative subordinate clause, namely whether and if. Yeah, in the main clause, you use closed interrogative such as did he accept the offer? It's a yes/no question. Yeah. Did he go to the supermarket? Kind of thing. But in the subordinate clause, you add whether before the question, and the order of the subject and predicate is normal. Like, okay, in the main clause you ask did he accept the offer, so you switch the auxiliary did with the subject he. But in the subordinate clause, you don't do that switch. Yeah, you just say, I am not sure whether he accepted the offer. Yeah, you don't say I'm not sure whether did he accepted the offer. That's not working. Yeah. So, will you lead the team? Is another example. So you can add that as subordinate clause in the complex clause, such as he asked me if I would lead the team. Yeah, he asked me whether I would lead the team. Okay. Right. Yeah, as I've said before, the key difference of clause interrogative in main clause is that there is subject auxiliary inversion. So you switch the subject and the auxiliary. Okay, but in the subordinate clause, the interrogative sentence becomes a basic declarative sentence, okay, with the basic subject predicate order, such as I'm not sure whether he accepted the offer. Yeah, he asked me if I would lead the thing. All right. Now we look at the open type of interrogative subordinate clause. Open is a open question, and it is marked by interrogative phrase with interrogative words such as what, who, which, what not. Okay. And here are some examples. Which candidate spoke first? Yeah, so that's an open question as a main clause. And in the subordinate clause, you can say, I can say which candidate spoke first. Okay, and you see, you don't need the whether or if, because you can still use the question words in the subordinate clause. Yeah, I cannot say which candidate spoke first. Yeah, so it is open. There are so many possibilities. Yeah. And another example is, why did she resign? There are a lot of reasons, yeah, why she resigns, and you can embed that as subordinate clause. It is obvious why she resigned, and you see, um, in these examples, you see that we still have auxiliary and subject inversion, yeah, with the question word at the beginning. But in the subordinate clause, there is no such inversion. Okay, so you still have subject and predicate order. Okay, it is obvious why she resigned. I don't know why she resigned. Okay, right. Interrogative can function as a complement. Okay, like the declarative version, both the closed and the open interrogative subordinate clauses can also function as a complement. Okay, it can function as a complement of a verbs. It can function as a subject of a clause, yeah, such as what caused the delay remains unclear. What caused us staying home is the COVID-19. Okay. Well, I hope we don't stay at home that long. And it can also function as extra post subject, like it remains unclear when we can be free from home. Yeah, it remains unclear. Okay. Complement of verbs such as I have discovered where they keep the key. So discover is the verb that is complemented by the subordinate clause of interrogative type. Another example is ask. I asked them what progress they had made, and so on and so forth. Okay. Right. These are another examples of complement of a interrogative in the subordinate clause. So this is the interrogative. This is the close interrogative subordinate clause that is a complement of the noun question. The question whether it is safe to go out was unclear. Yeah. Okay. This is example of adjective and preposition. Okay, and you still have these interrogative types of subordinate clause. Okay. Yeah, and interrogative, in addition to function as um, complement, such as before, it can also function as adjunct. Yeah, adjunct is optional element of a clause. Okay, it is adverb is typically optional, but before complement is obligatory. Yeah, it is required. Um, this is example of open and close interrogative functioning as adjunct. He will complain whatever you ask him to do. So it means you ask him to peel the fruit, you ask him to arrange the table, you ask him to clean the bed, he will complain. Yeah, whatever you ask him to do. So there is a lot of possibility that he will just still complain. And in the close interrogative, you have two kind of option that make him complain. Yeah, he will complain whether we meet during the week or at the weekend. It indicates that um, meeting during the week or at the weekend is just not good. Yeah, because he will just complain. Yeah, he will complain at whatever at these two possible meeting days. Okay. Okay. Now, these two functions of interrogative subordinate clause, yeah, the function as adjunct, it is used as exhaustive conditional construction. Okay, it uses interrogative clause such as this one. Interrogative clause as subordinate clause. Yeah, it uses interrogative clause to express a set of conditions that cover the possibilities. Okay, the possibilities here, especially in the open interrogative, is open, and this interrogative, whatever you ask him to do, is used to express that set of condition. Yeah, it is set to express condition that is very open. While in this close example, the interrogative subordinate clause with whether is used to express two set of condition. Yeah, the condition is only meeting during the week or at the weekend. These are two conditions that can trigger him to complain. Okay. Yeah, so two types of exhaustive conditional construction such as before is when the interrogative function as adjunct, as in this example. Yeah, here it functions as adjunct, but in the second type is that the interrogative function as a complement. Okay, it functions as a complement. Okay, such as this one. He will complain independently whether we meet during the week or at the weekend. Okay, and he will complain no matter what you ask him to do. Yeah. Okay, so this is just additional example of function of the interrogative subordinate clause. Okay, exclamative one. Exclamative subordinate clause is marked by the phrase how and what. Okay, so in the main clause you see how very kind you are. That's main clause. What a mess it was is a main clause of exclamative type, and you can embed that as a subordinate clause with similar structure. Okay, I told them how very kind you are. I told them what a kind man you are. Okay, I remember what a mess it was, and so on. So you can try build or find other examples of this type. And exclamative can also function only as complement. Yeah, it never functions as adjunct. So we see before the interrogative types can function as adjunct. The exclamative one always function as complement. and it is the complement of limited set of verbs. Yeah, there are only a small number of verbs that it can complement. Yeah, this is example of a complement function for the exclamative subordinate clause. Like subject, yeah, extra post subject. It is incredible how much we should stay at home. Yeah, it is unimaginable how long we should stay at home. That's another example of exclamative content subordinate clause. Okay. It can also function as a complement of verbs. I had forgotten what a tremendous speaker she is. Yeah. And so on and so forth. Okay. I think that's it for today, and I hope you like it. And if you have questions, please ask me via email. But I think I will try to set up a discussion forum on OASA, and if you have questions, you can post it there, and hopefully we can have further discussion. Okay. See you soon and stay safe. Bye.